Hello everyone, and welcome back to Terrifying Trios. We're entering the creepiest time of the year, and as such you can enjoy more frequent updates in this series in the weeks to come. This time our theme is a creature that's a staple of many horror films. We're talking about demons. As always, let's start with a quick content warning. The following films and book contain graphic violence and horrifying imagery, including but not limited to a woman hanging from a tree, rotting corpses, decapitation, blood, immolation, demonic imagery and possession, miscarriage, dog death, bird death, children in peril, a very creepy doll, and I kid you not, people being eaten alive by pigs. Viewer and reader discretion is advised. Our first movie is The Conjuring, the film that kicked off an entire cinematic universe of horror. Fictionalized versions of paranormal investigators and demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren helped the Perron family, two parents with 5 daughters, experiencing a haunting in their new home, a farmhouse built on land that, spoiler alert, once belonged to a witch named Bathsheba. Things escalate fairly quickly here. First, clocks stop at 3:07 a.m. Birds crash into windows, then the family dog is discovered dead. Carolyn, the mom, is eventually possessed by Bathsheba, who sacrificed her baby to the devil in the 19th century, thus cursing anyone who lives on her land. The Warrens discover a history of suicide and murder related to any house built on the property. The parents struggle to survive. There are lots of creepy moments with the kids where you worry their own mom is going to kill them, while the Warrens attempt to perform an exorcism to get rid of Bathsheba and free Carolyn. Another spoiler alert, Bathsheba uses Annabelle the doll to try and kill the Warrens' daughter, Judy. In all of these films, strange phenomena and what may initially seem to be a benign spiritual entity ends up being demonic. This film marks the first appearance of Annabelle the doll, in real life a Raggedy Ann doll, whose creepy visage has spawned her own movie trilogy, in which the doll is possessed by some kind of demon. Does it seem unwise that the Warrens share their home with possessed objects they've acquired over the course of their careers, many of which are demonic? Indeed it does. But the Warrens, even after their daughter has more than one dangerous brush with the supernatural, seem convinced throughout this film series that keeping these items where they can keep them under control is better than having them out in the world. In this film, there's a creepy music box that plays on its own just before the credits roll. In some ways, these films can be viewed as a weird PSA for the Catholic Church. The Warrens themselves are Catholic, and even when the families they help are not, it's their faith that helps them prevail over demonic entities. And it seems that only Catholic rites of exorcism are effective against the demons in these films. Of course, Annabelle demonstrates that in some cases, even the Warrens can never truly banish evil. The best they can hope for is to lock it away. Our second film, Hereditary, tells the story of 3 generations connected by a dark family secret. After the death of her enigmatic mother, Ellen, miniature artist Annie and her husband Steve know that their 13-year-old daughter, Charlie, is missing her grandmother, with whom she was close. Their 16-year-old son, Peter, wants to go to a party one night, and lies about where he's going, so Annie insists that Peter take Charlie with him. Charlie eats some chocolate cake at the party, not knowing that it contains nuts. This is a weird scene because why the heck are these teens making and serving chocolate walnut cake at their party? Was there weed in the cake too? I, an adult, would love to go to a baking party, but I don't know if that's really a high school thing. In any case, Charlie is very allergic to nuts, and when Peter tries to drive her to the hospital, she hangs her head out the car window in an attempt to get some air. And in swerving to avoid some roadkill, Peter hits a post that decapitates his little sister. In horrified shock, Peter drives home, lays awake all night, and when his mother discovers Charlie's body in the morning, he hears her begin to scream. After Charlie's funeral, things between Peter and Annie are obviously strained. Steve, a psychiatrist, tries to help his wife and son through their shared grief, but Annie seeks help through a support group, where she meets Joan. Joan teaches Annie how to contact Charlie through a seance, and things quickly spiral out of control. It turns out that Joan was a member of the same cult that Ellen, Annie's mom, was a major figure in. The group had long sought to summon a demon called Paimon to rule them, but to do so they needed a male host. Annie soon discovers to her horror that with Charlie dead, forces are now maneuvering to have her daughter take over Peter's body so that he can be possessed instead with Charlie's spirit in tow. And when Peter begins to experience disturbing phenomena, he ultimately finds his father's charred corpse, his mother possessed, and in the attic of their family's home, his grandmother's decapitated body. This movie contains not one, not two, but 3 decapitated corpses. Charlie's head, covered in ants and sitting on the roadside, is probably one of the most unsettling horror movie scenes I can think of, though in some ways it's a relief to finally see the truth of what's happened to her after what feels like a long scene of Peter silently driving home and waiting hours for his sister's body to be found. And since Annie, possessed by Paimon, decapitates herself at the end of the film, this is easily one of the most visually horrifying movies I've ever seen. She goes from front to back, by the way, in decapitating herself with piano wire, so as not to sever her own spinal cord before the job is done. My cousin and I saw this movie at the drive-in when it was released, and her review was simply, "Yeah, I hate this." Movies like The Conjuring rely primarily on jump scares, and while this movie has sudden moments of terror, there are a lot of quiet moments that build tension and fill the viewer with unease. While watching Hereditary, every time I thought I had the story figured out, some horrifying new twist would happen to scare me yet again. Moments between the surviving family members after Charlie's death are tense because all are struggling with grief, and in Peter's case, guilt over the accident. But what begins as a taut tale of people living with a horrible tragedy becomes a story of demonic possession and a cult dedicated to bringing the demon Paimon into our world. This movie is available through Canopy, so if you have a Rock Island Library card, for the low, low price of $0, you can see a film that just might haunt you forever. Last, this month's book is Daughters Unto Devils, a novel set in the 19th century. Amanda Werner is 16 when, after a long winter trapped inside the family's mountainside cabin, her father decides that they will move into one of the vacant houses he's heard of down on the prairie. This is fortuitous for Amanda, who, near the end of the long winter, saw what she believed was the devil on the mountain. Her family insists this was just a product of cabin fever, but Amanda can't forget the voice that whispered, "I am coming to eat your soul." In the spring, after a brief relationship with a boy, Amanda discovers that she is pregnant. Fearing her father's wrath, she confides only in her sister Emily, and after the long trip down the mountain to their new home on the prairie, one night, Amanda suffers a miscarriage. The Werners' new home, while bigger than their old one, has some problems. When they first discover the vacant cabin, the walls are spattered with blood. Amanda's father thinks an animal must have been killed inside, but Amanda is uncertain. And after she loses her baby, she begins to see something standing in the tall grass of the prairie at night. It has glowing eyes, and it isn't shaped like an animal. It's shaped like a baby. Amanda soon becomes convinced that the devil has followed her family down the mountain, especially after her mother begins acting strangely following an incident with her baby sister being attacked by ants. Soon, Amanda and her sister Emily desperately try to save their surviving siblings from whatever is hunting them. Their neighbors, a doctor and his son, fearing the demonic force that has come to their home, throw themselves to their pigs and are devoured, preferring death to whatever the devil has planned. This is a short and deeply scary novel about family, isolation, and struggling against impossible odds. A sense of doom pervades this whole book, and the last page is thrilling and horrifying, because it seems there is no escape from what plagues Amanda and her family. Unlike in The Conjuring, faith seems to be a neutral force here. It isn't stronger than the devil, which may or may not be a devil at all. Something else could be at work in the story, but whether you read this book as being about a monster, a demon, or some other supernatural force, Amanda's closeness with her sister Emily and determination to save their siblings offer more hope than the God that, according to their family's brand of Christianity, would damn Amanda for premarital sex. Rather than being doomed by a demonic force, Amanda's father and his dedication to the deeply flawed idea of manifest destiny makes choices and ignores warning signs that get him and most of his family killed. Ultimately, I read this novel as a critique of religion that isolates and condemns, rather than uniting to support those in need and pursue common goals, like not getting killed by demons. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you again soon with another terrifying trio.